Hi guys, welcome to the 100th episode of AB in the Films. You know, for the past 6 months I've been thinking about what I was going to do for this occasion, and three ideas came to mind. Two of which I will save for later this season, and the third option was a documentary. Now this documentary was made at least a year and a half ago. It was made for a college project of mine, and I've made some altercations to it and editing and everything, and I think you guys might enjoy it. So here we go. The 100th episode / 6th season premiere of AB in the Films.
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you. I make you laugh.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Attica! 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 Attica!
We've climbed 4 decks so far. We've got 2 more to go. This is the only way out.
They call it the Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
I could have got more out. I could have got more. I don't know if I just.
There will be generations because of what you did.
I didn't do enough.
You did so much.
There's no place like home.
Rosebud.
I've always had a love for movies. In fact, when I was about 3, 4, 5 years old, and I think every 90s kid had this, I had the Disney movies on video cassette in a huge collection pile underneath of our television set, where we kept all of our tapes in those days. I never really thought about becoming a director or getting involved with movies at that age. I knew I just really, really enjoyed this, piece of entertainment called cinema. There were a lot of movies that I would say did kind of influence me to want to be in the business or break out into the business somehow. Not necessarily be a director, but at least get interested in a business like that. And when I think of movies like that, I instantly think of Tim Burton, particularly 2 movies that Tim Burton worked on, one of which he directed and the other one he produced. The one he directed, of course, is Beetlejuice. Definitely Beetlejuice.
Do you, Beetle? Nobody says the B word. Come on.
And the one he produced was James and the Giant Peach, because that was the first time I had ever seen stop motion.
You blithering nitwit! Bite me! Have you two gone mad? What do we do?
A couple of other movies that stand out to me from the 90s that I grew up with, definitely 101 Dalmatians with Glenn Close, The Sound of Music.
Drop of golden sun, me a name I call myself, far long, long way.
But the one movie that changed everything for me, I'll never forget it. I was 7 years old. I come downstairs. My dad has the TV on. He's watching this movie on television. Never heard of it. I asked him, "What are you watching?" And he said, "It's called Jaws."
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
We ended up buying it on video, and it came with, it was on video cassette, by the way, and it had these 2 cassette tapes. The first tape was the movie, and the second tape was Steven Spielberg and the crew talking about how they made the movie. And that was the first time that I found the making of the movie far more interesting than the movie. So that was the first time that happened, and I was 7. I had this great idea. I said, Dad, I want to make a shark movie. Can we make a shark movie? And he said, sure. So I came up with, we're going to make Jaws 4. And at the time, I was unaware that there was a Jaws 4, Jaws the Revenge. So we decided to call it Shark Death. And I was really interested in making this movie, but the thing I realized before we even could put a story together was we had to build the shark. Now, my dad is in construction, so he knows how to make stuff. Never made a shark before. I was 7 years old. I didn't know how to make a shark. So what we did was we would play the tape where Steven Spielberg is talking about how they made the movie Jaws, and they were showing archive footage from 1974, 1975 of them building Bruce from Jaws. So we would pause that, and where they would show the skeleton of how they made the shark, my dad took one look at that and he was like, okay, I got it. And then he would go back in the garage and he would make this big shark. And by the time it was all finished, we had a full-fledged great white shark on wheels, and we could move it around on wheels and stuff. So I was really interested in making this movie, and I was really excited because this thing looked real. It was incredible. You know, looking back on it now, I was only 7, you know, but we had, like, there was no way this could have worked because, number one, not only was the shark made of paper mache on the outside, because it would have collapsed in the ocean, but number two, the way this thing moved, there were no hydraulic tubes in it or anything like that, the way the shark in Jaws was. This thing, the only way you could move it was pushing it, because it was on wheels. But they were really tiny wheels, like there were like 4 wheels on each side. And moving this thing, just moving it down the driveway of our house was a pain. Imagine getting it through the listen, never mind getting it in the ocean. Try getting it through the sand on the beach. There's no way you can push this thing. This thing was huge. And when I decided, so the idea pretty much died. I didn't know what to do. We weren't going to film this thing in the ocean. And the shark kind of sat in there, and that was the end of that. My dad took the shark apart, he threw it in the garbage, and that was the end of Shark Death. And I thought, okay, maybe we won't make Shark Death anymore. And at this point, we're talking 2002, 2003. I'm 10 years old now. I've made about 5 home movies with my dad as the cameraman. So when it came time to do my next film, which is what I wanted to do, which was a little movie I called Gun Quest, which was about basically what James Bond was all about, I asked my dad to be the cameraman. And he was too tired, he couldn't do it, he had a lot of stuff on his plate, and he said, I'm going to tell you how the camera works. The camera that we were using. And he said, this is stop, this is play, this is rewind, this is fast forward, and this is record. And this is how you take the lens and you put the lens on, you know, this is zoom, this is, you know, and he was showing me how it works. And I filmed the first scene for this movie I was working on called Gun Quest. And it was the first time I had my new logo, the AB logo, because I figured, hey, movies have to have a company logo before the movie starts. So this was the beginning of the AB Films logo, and this was the first scene I'd done for this movie, Gun Quest. And when I watched the tape, I watched what I got, and I thought to myself, hey, I got what I wanted. Because in the 5 films prior, my dad was filming the wrong thing. Now I have what I have. And that was the moment when I said to myself, I wonder what else I can do with this camera. So that was where it began. That was when the whole director thing began. And that's when I really, really got interested. I was in the 7th grade, and I was talking to a friend of mine who I've had on my show, AB in the Films. His name is Devin Kiesler. And I was talking to him about this story that I had about a shark. And he said, oh, wow, that's really interesting. And he really got into this whole thing. Like, he wanted to, I don't know if he wanted to help write it or anything, but he definitely wanted to help out with this project I had. And I said, yeah, but, you know, we would have to rebuild the shark, and we can't shoot it in the ocean, and I don't know where I'm going to take this new camera I have of mine that I've had for a couple of years now. I don't know what we're going to do. So I came up with the idea because I had this book that I still have to this day. I took it out from the library. I read that book backwards and forwards. I just love that book so much. Because after Jaws came out, I became infatuated with sharks. I found out that bull sharks can live in fresh water. And my uncle happened to own a lake in South Jersey at the time. And I thought, there's an idea. So then we started talking, me and my dad, about rebuilding the shark. In order to save money, we only had to build what we were going to shoot. And so this time, we only built the head, the fin, and the tail fin, because that's all we needed. Now, the head was going to be easy because it didn't come like this. We had the top part and we had the bottom part. Now, the bottom part we really didn't need because it was going to be underwater. And the way you were going to move this thing was we were going to have a person underneath it and walk in the water to move the head along the lake. So that if the shark's head ever had to pop up, someone would be under it. He could lower it and then bring it back down underneath the water. I was 13 and I had some delusional idea that I was going to make an hour and 5-minute long movie in 2 days with all my friends and this shark, and we only got 10 minutes of the movie filmed. We never finished that movie, and it's been 10 years since. So, you know, that movie will never get finished, but it was a fun experience doing that and shooting that movie. Steven Spielberg was the one that started the idea for me of wanting to become a director. And there were other directors that I sort of kind of heard of, not really sure who they were at the time, but definitely knew their work. And people like Scorsese, Robert Zemeckis, Stanley Kubrick, John Hughes, Charlie Chaplin, James Cameron, Orson Welles. These were the guys that made my favorite movies. But the one director that made me absolutely fall in love with the idea of making movies, it wasn't Steven Spielberg, it was the master himself.
Good evening.
Alfred Hitchcock. The first Hitchcock movie I ever saw was The Birds. And I was blown away by how they made that. And then I saw Psycho for the first time. But the one thing I love about Hitchcock, and this is something that Stanley Kubrick does very well, and even I would find out later Quentin Tarantino does very well, and even some of the films from Sid LeMay, is dialogue. Rope, Strangers on a Train, North by Northwest, Rear Window. It's all about the dialogue. It's all about what a character is feeling. Why is this character feeling that way? How is this character feeling that way? And it just goes back and forth. And that is one of the key elements in making a great film story-wise. Because I never actually realized that what I was watching all this time were stories. And so I thought, hey, if these guys can tell stories, maybe I can give it a try. So the years go on, and I'm making these movies. Now, the way I would do credits, I would write the credits out on a piece of paper and put the paper up to the camera and scroll the paper up. That's what I would do. So I would have like 3 to 5 pieces of loose leaf paper taped together and just roll it up in front of the camera. Because how else could you do it? How else could you do it? You know, you didn't have, at least I didn't have a computer. We did, but it wasn't used for filming. We had one of those, box computers, in those days. in those days. We're talking about 12 years ago, really. But then we got a Dell computer, and it came with Microsoft PowerPoint. And I was learning in school how you can do PowerPoint presentations. So what I would do then, once we got that computer, I started taking the camera, and instead of scrolling the loose leaf paper up, I would just point the camera at the computer and go around the edges, and it was terrible because you can still see the edges of the computer in the shots. Just make a PowerPoint presentation with animations and stuff with the credits and make the credits scroll, and I would just record that at the beginning and ending of every movie that I made. I would just put the camera in front of the computer and play the PowerPoint presentation, and I would hit the key on the keyboard with my finger. I'd be very quiet because, you know, the built-in microphone on the camera can hear everything. Just click it. I'm like, okay. And the way I would do music is, instead of dubbing it in, because I didn't have an editing machine, I didn't have anything. It was all edited in the camera, and we're talking about 8mm film here. So if I had one shot, if I had two people, I wouldn't film the whole scene from this end and film the whole scene from that end and then cut it up. I wouldn't do that. One sentence here, click, unrecord, turn the camera around, click. Okay, he said his line, unrecord, turn the camera around. And the way I did music was I would have a CD playing. So if I wanted a song, and this is pre-YouTube, okay? And this is also, I think, pre-iTunes. I mean, iTunes was in, but it wasn't a thing yet. If I wanted a song, I would go out and buy the album, and I would play the song off the CD player and just play it in the background and turn the volume up while the credits are going. So the music was playing in the background, I'm hitting the keyboard to make the PowerPoint presentation go, and the camera's recording it off the computer. That was how I made these movies when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. That was how it was done. And then when I was 16, I went to main stage.
Leaving this program, the kids really get an opportunity now to leave with a finished product. And not only that, they leave with a bunch of new friendships and bonds that they wouldn't have had before this. And now they have the tools and the knowledge necessary to help create what was just a hobby and turn it into a career, possibly.
It's basically summer camp. You know, you go there at the end of June, you're there until the beginning of August, and in the film program, you get to make your own 5-minute film. And the teachers that are there, they show you how to write, and we have a pitch day. You have to pitch your idea to the whole class. You have to have your script approved. You have to have your storyboards. Like, it's basically like making a movie, and you have to find actors, and you have to have a script supervisor and all this stuff. And you get to edit it, and you get to show it, and we have a big awards ceremony at the end. You could probably win Best Director. You know, it's kind of like the Oscars. And I said, wow, I gotta go to this place. This place sounds awesome. And it was. And I did it for 2 summers.
Because it's all part of the plan.
What plan?
Meeting with Michael Lecision, who was in charge of the film program. He was in the middle of making a film called No Footing, which later was released, that I ended up going to see, and it turned out to be one of my favorite films I saw that year in 2009. And he had this way of showing the new kids what editing is. And I was one of the new kids. And I'll never forget this. He came in one day and he had a DVD of the shots he was getting for a particular scene, because he was filming a movie at this time. And he said, all right, guys, once I show you this, you're never going to look at movies the same way ever again. And I thought, oh boy, what's he going to show us?
Actually, I work at the copy shop around the corner.
Oh. And if you go ahead and employ this odd practice of smiling, it's very possible that you may bring in a few extra customers from outside.
And then he started showing us the scene. And he says, okay, now we have this character on this side. We're going to film the conversation here. Cut. We're going to film it over here. Cut. And we're going to get those, and we're going to get their dialogue. And that's when I started to realize, oh, this is where bloopers come from. Oh, okay, I get it. Now I understand. And at that point, I started asking around, how do you edit? How do you edit? Because I have no idea I have no idea how you do it. How do you get the footage off an 8mm tape into the computer? I don't even know how to do that. And they showed me how, and they said, this is what you do. And I said, well, let's say you have a conversation. how do you cut back and forth? And they said, well, where do you want the shot to begin? I said, right here. They said, okay, you highlight this, take that up, put it up, take this, highlight that, and put it up there. And now play it back. And when I saw that, the whole editing in the camera, the CD playing in the background, the keyboard tapping, all went out the window.
Good evening. Every American generation has its icons in the world of entertainment. Michael Jackson has been one of the best-known stars on this planet for the last several decades. On this night, when we were preparing a remembrance of Farrah Fawcett, suddenly word arrived from Southern California that Jackson had been rushed to the hospital. There were grave reports about his condition. And now this, confirmation tonight that he has died. A lot will be said about Michael Jackson.
When he passed away, see, here's the funny thing. I wasn't even a fan of his when he died. I knew 2 of his songs. That's it. One of them being a song that he did with his brothers when he was with the Jackson 5. So when he died, I started watching his music videos because MTV, were playing his music videos all summer that year. And I just became hooked with his music. I never heard of Bad, never heard of The Way You Make Me Feel, never heard of Man in the Mirror, never heard of Beat It or Billie Jean or Human Nature or PYT or Remember the Time. None of these songs I ever heard of. Never saw the music videos for them. Never heard of these songs. I started listening. And later that year, Michael Jackson's This Is It comes out. And when that movie came out, I already had the knowledge of at least how to edit. Okay? And I went into that movie thinking, oh, it's rehearsal footage. We're not going to be able to hear the whole song because, it's a rehearsal. They're going to start the song. He's going to stop halfway through. They're going to talk and talk. He's probably barely going to be in it. They're only cashing in on it because he's dead and they'll get money out of it and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? That's the movie I thought we were going to get. And then Wanna Be Starting Something comes on.
Can't beat you, baby. Don't have a baby. Don't think, baby. Can't beat you, baby.
This basically was edited the way we were editing our movies at Mainstage. Because what they did was they got footage of him singing the song on 2 to 3 different days meshed together. I know how that's done now, how that's edited. So the editing blew me away when I saw this movie because it came out at a time when I had just learned how to edit. So not only am I blown away by the editing in that movie, and I always say that, and a lot of people are asking me, that movie? Why that one? Of all the movies with film editing, why that one? And I tell you, it came out at the right time. It just came out at the right time. I have no words. This art form is wonderful.